Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be continuing my Best of the Drugstore series, and I'm going to be sharing with you what I think are the best drugstore cheek products that you could find, at least out of the ones that I've tried and the ones that I've loved and I've had in my collection. I reach for drugstore cheek products so often, more often than high-end products, I feel like that's kind of been the trend in my whole makeup routine recently, but a lot of these cheek products I think are actually better than high-end. So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the best bronzers, blushes, highlighters, cream blushes, and bronzers, all from the drugstore, and all are a really affordable price point. So I really hope that you guys enjoy seeing this video. Let me know what you guys want to see next in my Best of the Drugstore series, and I can definitely do that for you guys. And if you want to see what I think are the best drugstore cheek products, make sure to keep on watching. All right, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. I'm going to be starting off with the best drugstore bronzers in today's video. Now, ask me a couple of years ago, I solely used high-end bronzer. I just never found a really great one from the drugstore that was high quality, good for my skin tone. A couple years back, the drugstore, in my opinion, could never do bronzers correctly, but I think I have found a select few that are really just so good and that are better than some of my high-end bronzers. So the first one that I'm wearing today, that I wear in so many videos, is my number one drugstore bronzer, and that is definitely the e.l.f. primer infused bronzer. This retails for only $6, which is crazy, but this is one of the best formula of bronzers that I've ever tried because of how pigmented it is. It lasts all day long, it does not fade at all, and I have mine in the shade Perpetually Tan, which is definitely a little bit more of a warm bronzer. I would say if you guys are more fair than me or a little bit more cool tone, you might want to go a shade up in this one. If you guys can see it on my hand there, it just gives a really beautiful warm and sun-kissed glow. It is 100% matte. There's no sheen or shimmer or anything in there. And again, this is the bronzer that I'm wearing today. It's also one that you guys have seen me use a ton on my channel, that I typically wear a lot of the time, but you guys know e.l.f. is one of my favorite brands. I cannot stop talking about them here on my channel, and this bronzer is definitely a huge gem from them. Probably my number one cheek product from the drugstore out of everything in this video. It is just that good. Highly recommend this one if you guys are looking for a drugstore bronzer. Next up for bronzer, another one of my favorites that is so smooth, and I think the name of this bronzer is spot on, and that is Milani's Silky Matte Bronzing Powder, another one that I've raved about here on my channel. This was gifted to me by Milani last holiday season, but I love this, especially again as we go into the cooler winter months, and maybe I want something a little bit less sun-kissed, something a little bit less warm on the face. As you guys can see, this particular shade, which is actually in the shade Sun-Kissed, which I think is funny, it's just a little bit more cool tone, but it is such a good, smooth, and even bronzer. The Milani bronzer is definitely more of a cool undertone, something again that I like to use as my skin gets a little bit lighter in the winter or even like early spring. I actually find that my skin is usually at its fairest in like February, March. This is something that I definitely like to pull out. One of my other favorite things about this is the packaging. I just find this to be so luxurious looking. I love the black and the gold, and it's just a little bit more heavy feeling in the hand. I love the really pretty design in the actual powder, and I feel like this is going to last me so long because despite what it looks like, I've actually used this a ton and I've barely even made a dent in this. I'm sure you guys could guess. Next up, the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzers are also really great from the drugstore. I have to say, when I first tried these, they weren't my absolute favorite. I liked it, but I wasn't 100% sure what the hype was about with these, despite just that it smelled really great. I think my biggest thing about it was that the shade bronzer that they originally released barely shows up on my skin tone. So here's a swatch of it. It is right here underneath the Milani bronzer. As you guys can see, it's very, very fair. In a sense, I'm very happy because those of you with very fair skin that have trouble finding a bronzer, I think this would be your solution. But to me, it just never showed up that much on my skin, and I didn't love it until they released more shades and I picked out the shade Deep Bronzer, which is typically not a shade that I would ever pick out for myself, but it actually ended up being a really nice shade for my skin tone, and it made me like the butter bronzer a lot. I'm sure you guys have heard about the butter products from Physicians Formula or probably tried them for yourself. Again, a very self-explanatory name. They are very buttery and smooth, almost feel like a cream when you swirl your finger into the formula, but they do apply like a powder. And there you guys see all the way at the bottom there is the shade Deep Bronzer in the Butter Bronzer, which definitely works the best for my skin tone. Basically, once I found my proper shade in this, I ended up really liking this as a bronzer. I don't love the packaging. I don't think the mirror included in this with the little brush is necessary. I've never used the little brush or the mirror that comes in here. I definitely think they could sleek out the packaging a little more, which they actually might have already. I think I've seen an updated version of the packaging on Amazon. They're just a little bit chunky. They don't fit in my compact organizers. I've had to just keep them loose in my drawer. But all in all, as I said, I've really grown to love these bronzers. My original one, as you guys can see, actually it's like falling apart. The bronzer falls out of the pan and everything. So I've definitely gotten good use out of them. They're not my top favorite drugstore bronzer, but they're definitely a really great alternative. Now I'm going to be moving on to talking about blushes, which excites me so much. I have turned into such a blush person, you guys. Again, going back a couple years ago, I just didn't love blush. When my skin was more acne prone and I had a lot of redness, I was like, why in the world would I ever want to put more red and pink into my skin when I just did all this work covering up my skin with foundation and concealer? The first blush that I want to mention, I was actually unsure if I was going to talk about it in today's video because I do believe it falls into the category of an indie brand and not necessarily a drugstore brand, but it is on the lower end side. When you walk into Ulta, you can get it for between like $8 and $10. So I figured I would throw it in this video as a bonus blush. So this is Juvia's Place Bella Blush. This is the most pigmented formula of blush that I think I've tried from the drugstore, and I know the shade is going to surprise you guys. This is definitely not a shade that I use too often on my face. Something like this would look absolutely gorgeous on a deeper skin tone, but for me, I like to use this just like a little tiny dip in to get that really red rosy cheek that I think are so cute in the winter, especially in the colder season when we get those naturally red cheeks. When I cover up my skin with foundation, I kind of like to mimic that look that we get in the winter using this blush. So I know it's crazy pigmented. It's actually like a red blush, which is something that I don't use too often. But trust me, you guys, dipping into this so lightly and just giving yourself a nice flush on the cheeks is the cutest look ever, and it's just so good in the winter. Just trust me. I just like to switch it up once in a while from those traditional peachy shades and natural pinky shades on the cheek when I feel like it is more appropriate. Well, you can wear whatever makeup you want no matter the time of year, but I just think, again, when it's cold in the winter closer to the holidays, I like more of that like bright flushed, almost like Santa looking, like cherry cheeks. I just think it's so cute, and I've been loving this blush these past few years to get that look. One of my all-time favorite blushes, both formula-wise and color-wise, is the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush in the shade Always Peachy. I love a good peachy blush. Definitely one of my favorites to wear because I just feel like it goes with absolutely everything, and it complements my skin really well. I just love a nice warmer flush to the cheek. The primer infused blushes from e.l.f. are actually a very similar formula to the bronzers in the sense that they are crazy pigmented. You want to have more of a light hand with them, and they last a really long amount of time. I do find the blush to be a little bit more of a powdery formula compared to the bronzer, but I just think that has like something to do with the color or the pigment. But as you guys can see, the second swatch right here is the shade Always Peachy in the e.l.f. primer infused bronzer. I definitely feel like it's a little bit of a stronger peachy look on the cheeks than it's pulling on the hand. I think that's because in comparison to the Juvia's Place bronzer, it's like really kind of washing it out in a sense. Maybe you guys can see there. But when you actually go ahead and put this on your cheeks, it's like bam, peachy. It goes with everything. It is such a beautiful finish and color, totally matte, and lasts a long time. There's nothing really else I could say about it. Definitely one of my favorite blush formulas of all time though. It is like chef's kiss, so good. An even more affordable option from the drugstore that is, again, seriously amazing when it comes to blush are Wet n Wild's Color Icon blushes. These are so good. These have been around forever. These retail for $3.50, but again, Wet n Wild is one of those brands that tends to fluctuate. But here's what it looks like. Just such a cute and tiny little blush. But some of you guys might recognize it as this from back in the day. I do have an older version to show you. They have since upgraded the packaging from the rectangle. As you guys can see, they used to leave a space for a little brush that no one ever used again, and they put it in this really cute round compartment with just enough room for the actual blush. I've tried a couple of different shades in these over the years. This one right here in the shade Rose Champagne is not my favorite, so I'm not going to be swatching that for you guys today. However, the shade Mellow Wine is such a good like deep nude shade for so many different looks for year round, again specifically in the fall and winter when I like a little bit more of that deep blushy look. This one tends to lean a little bit more berry, again a little bit more like a true wine. This bottom one right here, like the name says, Mellow Wine, very self-explanatory. It's just such a good shade, you guys. I feel like I'm being repetitive, but definitely one of my top blushes of all time, not just from the drugstore. I just love the more intense blushy look on the cheek that this gives, but it's not too bright. It's almost like a your cheeks but better, with a little bit of like an added oomph on the face, if that makes any sense. And I find that they've gotten even better since they did go ahead and update the packaging, which you actually are getting a little bit more product in these. Although it looks smaller than the old original packaging, you are getting 0.1 ounces of product, which isn't a ton, but at least you're not losing any and you're just gaining a little tiny bit, which I think is such a good deal. Again, I've seen these for $2.99, $3.49. You can't go wrong with Wet n Wild most of the time. They're really great. The last matte blush from the drugstore that I have to mention in this video is definitely an OG here on YouTube. A lot of people have had these. They were very popular, and that is the Milani Rose Powder Blush. I have mine in the shade 01 Romantic Rose. This was definitely one of my first experiences, I would say, when it came to blush. I was never a huge blush person, like I said, so when I started, I wanted to start off light. I didn't want to go too shimmery. I didn't want to go too bright and intense. I chose this because it's a nice, very light pink. Again, it's kind of like a no blush kind of blush and just gives you a little bit of that flush. First and foremost, I have to talk about the stunning packaging here. These blushes retail for around $8.99, and Milani always has such stunning, like heavy feeling packaging. And it is actually a rose indent on the powder, which is so beautiful. This is definitely something that I would display. This shade 01 Romantic Rose is kind of just that classic pinky blush that you really can't go wrong with. It goes with every single look. Any eye look goes with any lip color type of blush. And again, the packaging on these Milani products do have a nice weight to them, and they feel very high end. I'm not done with Milani blushes quite yet. Another huge favorite of mine that I actually think I like these more than the rose blushes that I just shared. This is the blush that I'm wearing today. These are the Milani Baked Blushes. Such classics here on YouTube. You guys might have seen this in the shade Luminoso. That is crazy popular here in the beauty community. But I have these shades 02 Rose d'Oro, which is just a stunning rosy shade. These are luminous blushes. They have that kind of like multi-tone marbling effect running throughout them. So this one has like a strong rosy undertone with lots of gold running through it. Just like, how stunning is this? This is the blush that I'm wearing on my cheeks today. Very luminous. They don't give off too much of that intense pigmented color, which I like. They tend to stay a little more luminous, especially just when you kind of brush them on your cheeks with a light brush. When I'm swatching it with my finger, it is a little bit more built up than how it shows up on the face, but you guys can see how glowy it is. All of those little gold reflex in there are beautiful. These are really great like summer blushes. And then I also have the shade 03 Berry Amore, which is such a stunning berry color with, again, some gold running through it, a little bit more like pinky flecks running through it. And these are just so beautiful. I could look at these all day long, but here you guys can see the differences between Berry Amore right here and Rose d'Oro right here. The berry shade is definitely more like mauve-y, cool tone, and the rose shade has a little bit more warmth, slightly bit more of like that peachy rose undertone. I definitely want to try out the classic Luminoso shade and a couple of other shades in here that so many people rave about, but for now these are the two that I have that I love, and these usually retail for $7.99 a piece. All right, you guys, I'm quickly popping in and interrupting this video because I am just about to upload it, and I realized that I totally forgot to mention a couple of really great products from e.l.f. I had them written down on my list when I was planning the video, but I guess when I was pulling the product to talk about, they just totally slipped my mind. So of course they are all from e.l.f. I'm sure you guys can tell I'm just obsessed with e.l.f. I love everything from them, and the first ones that I want to mention are their blush palettes. Packaging is a little different because I purchased them at separate times. This one on the left is in the shade light, and this one on the right is in the shade dark. Dark is definitely my personal favorite. These shades are just a little bit more rich, a little bit more warm tone, and these are just like more my colors compared to these over here are a little bit more cool tone, but I still wanted to share them with you guys because the formula is so good. They're very, very pigmented, easy to work with. Sorry, my nails look so bad underneath, you guys. I have to get them done and they're like stained with foundation, but I just love these blushes so much. They only retail for $8 each, so about $2 per shade of blush, which honestly I don't think is bad at all. These are just a really great deal, awesome formula. And again, if you are a makeup artist, freelance makeup artist, if you're looking for some variety of blush to add to your kit as well, these are a great affordable option from the drugstore. I do not know how these slipped my mind at all because I've been obsessed with these. These are e.l.f.'s bite-sized face duos. I have two of them here. They retail for only $3, the same exact incredible price as the bite-sized eyeshadows. These are the two shades that I own in e.l.f.'s bite-sized face duos. This one right here is the shade Lychee, and this one is going to be a little bit more of a mauve-y deep nude type of blush shade, if you guys can see right there. Sorry, I know the lighting again is not the greatest, and it comes with this very beautiful bronzy highlighter, I guess you could say. I know it keeps going out of focus, but unfortunately the highlighter in this is actually just a hint too deep for my skin tone. It kind of leaves that dark stripe look on my face when I wear this, and I love this blush shade. This has been like my everyday go-to blush lately. Look at that. It's just so good for only $3. My personal favorite right here is the shade White Peach. I'm sure this does not surprise any of you. I just love these peachy tones in a blush and these champagne-y tones in a highlighter. This is like my ideal perfect face palette for every day. It gives such a peachy flush on the cheek, a strong peachy flush I should say. And then here are the swatches as well. These are just so good, so creamy and pigmented. The highlighter is perfect for my skin tone. It's a little bit of a lighter, true champagne shade that shows up a lot better compared to the Lychee palette. I definitely had to pop on and share these with you guys. I am so happy that I was able to try these face duos out. I think if you take anything from this video, these little $3 face duos are incredible. And as I said, e.l.f. overall girl never lets me down. Now I'm going to be moving on to the best drugstore highlighters in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys can kind of see the same brands that I'm talking about over and over in this video. And I definitely don't mean to be repetitive, but these are just my true honest opinions. These are the best drugstore cheek products, and I find that these same brands that I love and I'm talking about, I just gravitate towards a lot. Milani, e.l.f, Wet n Wild. I just think that they do drugstore products so well, and I haven't really found any others that are comparable to these few brands that I'm talking about today. So the first highlighter that I have to share with you guys today is Milani's Stellar Lights highlighter palette in the shade 03 Rose Gold. I don't know if I'm like late to the party on this one or if I just missed it, but I feel like that this does not get the amount of hype that it deserves, because this is absolutely incredible. This is the highlighter palette that I'm wearing on my face today. It just gives off such a stunning effect of highlighter, and you do get the 3 separate shades in there. So here on my finger, you guys can see it comes with this stark white, which is such a good mixing shade, or really great for those of you with fair skin. A gorgeous standard gold shade. I typically kind of mix these two together. And then it also comes with the rose gold, which is too deep on my skin tone, but I have used it as a blush topper. I will show you guys the swatches on my hand with literally just like one swipe, and you could see all of the product that's left on my finger. The intensity and the pigment of this highlighter palette is no joke, and as I said, I don't know if I'm late to the party, if I missed people talking about this, but this highlighter formula is out of this world stunning, especially this bright white shade. It makes such a good lid shade, inner corner shade. And again, I mixed the white shade and the gold shade together. It is just so good. If you guys have not tried this, definitely run and go get this. One of my top recommendations in this video for sure. And I do believe it comes in a couple of other color combinations as well, if this one doesn't call your name. But I mean, I think the swatches for this one definitely speak for itself. Another one of my favorite highlighters from the drugstore that I use all the time, and these I could definitely say are almost identical, if not better than high-end highlighters, are the Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighting powders. These were kind of like the first really blinding highlighter in the drugstore world, because I just remember having like Ofra highlighters and Anastasia Beverly Hills highlighters in my collection. And when these came out in the first original shades, they kind of shook the beauty community a little bit because of how intense their formulas are. So here's a little up close of the powder in the shade Blossom Glow, has that really pretty imprint. And then here's Golden Flower Crown, which I'm sure you guys can see I've used a ton. This used to be like my go-to every day. And this is actually almost a perfect dupe for Ofra Rodeo Drive. It's also a really great dupe for Anastasia So Hollywood. I'll show you guys like a live swatch. I know I haven't been doing any of these swatches in front of the camera, but look at that. That is the shade Blossom Glow with just one dip in the pan and one swatch across my hand. Here's Precious Petals, which is more of like an everyday champagne-y rose gold. And then one that I haven't really used is the shade Crown of My Canopy. This would be a beautiful highlighter for those of you with tan to deeper skin tones. But for me, it's just a little bit too dark of a highlighter, and again, makes a really great blush topper for me. There are the 4 shades in the Wet n Wild Mega Glow highlighter. As I'm sure you guys can see, these are blinding, especially some of the lighter shades, and the formula of these are dupes for the Ofra highlighters for sure. Next up, this is the Wet n Wild Hello Halo blush lighter, which I wasn't sure if I should include this in the blush section of this video or the highlighter section, but I find myself using this more for the highlighter. This is what it looks like. It is a blush lighter combo, so you get one highlighter in here and one blush, which, if you guys can see when I swatch, is more of like a highlighter or blush topper type of formula. Here are the finger swatches side by side. The highlighter in here is stunning. When I don't know which highlighter to wear, this is one that I grab on a pretty frequent basis. I don't even know where to swatch this, you guys. I just placed it on the top of Golden Flower Crown right there, but it's a little lighter, a little brighter, and has even more of that wet looking type of formula. Wet n Wild just totally kills it with the highlighters, and then all the way down here is the swatch of the blush in here, which again is more of like a topper slash pinky highlighter. I find myself wearing it as more of something like that than an actual standard blush on its own. It's just a little bit too metallic to be a standard blush. The very last category in today's video are cream products. I only have two things to show you guys, one blush and one bronzer. The first blush type of product, I wouldn't really consider it a blush actually. This is e.l.f.'s monochromatic multi-stick in the shade Glistening Peach, and this only retails for $4. It definitely doesn't give that really intense color that a lot of blushes give on the cheek. If you guys can see it here, it does look like it has pigment to it, but once you start to kind of fade it out, it gets really sheer and then just turns into more of like a glowy type of stick. And it also does have a decent amount of shimmers. I don't know if those are picking up on camera, but this gives a ton of reflect to the cheek. And I found that when I use this, I like to use this as like an under foundation glowy product. Then again, it's not marketed to be a cream blush. It is marketed as a multi-stick, so you could use it as a blush, bronzer, highlighter, cream eyeshadow. You could also use it on your lipstick. So I can't be mad about it because it's not marketed as a blush. And again, it's in the shade Glistening Peach. And then the very last thing that I have to show you guys in today's video is another oldie but goodie. This is Wet n Wild Mega Glow Makeup Contour Stick in the shade Call Me Maple. And this is one of my favorite cream bronzers ever because it has the perfect undertone. It's a really great like gel formula that's easy to blend out on the cheek. And it's only like $3 or $4, which is very affordable for a cream contour stick. From personal experience, as someone who has tried a couple of other cream contours, this is the perfect neutral. It has a little bit more of like an olivey undertone, which I find to be perfect for my skin tone. And it just blends out so easily. You guys can see as it's blending. It doesn't say as strongly pigmented. It really blends out just like a beautiful bronzer on the face. And it's so easy to use. I actually used this yesterday for just like a really quick and easy everyday makeup look. It looked so natural and seamless on the skin. I didn't even have to go in with any powder bronzer on top. As someone who doesn't use cream cheek products too often, or if you guys kind of just want to dip your toes into it but you don't want to spend a lot of money, the cream sticks from Wet n Wild are a really great affordable option just to kind of get started and test out. This makes for like the best, most intense nose contour. I might start using this every day for my nose contour because I tried it yesterday and I love how this looked. All right, you guys, so that is going to complete this video. Those are the best bronzers, blushes, highlighters, and cream cheek products in my opinion from the drugstore. If you guys have any recommendations for drugstore cheek products that I didn't mention in this video, please feel free to send them over. You guys know I always love to try out new drugstore makeup, and I would love to hear your recommendations. I really hope that you guys enjoyed seeing this video and spending time with me today. If you did, and if you want to see more of these best of the drugstore videos in the future, definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up and also let me know what category I should do next in the comments down below. And if you guys haven't seen my past videos, I have done mascaras and foundations so far, I believe. I will have those linked down below as well if you guys want to go and check them out. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to my channel before you leave. I would love to have you guys here as part of my little YouTube fam. If you don't want to miss out on any of my future videos, click that notification bell down below and you'll get notified every single time that I upload a new video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.